All right, YouTube, it is Mr. Mean coming at you live from very sunny 9 degrees Duluth, Minnesota. We are in the heart of our winter here, and it is very chilly. I just wanted to pop out another video today. We're doing these on YouTube Live just because it's easy. I don't have to do any processing for the most part, post-processing or anything. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I got the mic set off a little bit to the side, and it is a Blue Snowball mic. I highly recommend it. I got mine for a decent price. Let's see. So for at least the next week or so, these videos are going to be coming a little faster. So if you haven't liked and subscribed, or better yet, do a donation through ZellyPay. If you have a mobile banking app on your phone, or you can go to zellypay.com. It's a process that works through your bank. So there's no cost to you. There's no cost to me. And if you send me a donation, I get it within an hour. I left Patreon. I didn't like a lot of their political views. I didn't like the way they did things. And it took forever to get your money. So I basically sent a message out to all of my Patreon subscribers, saying, hey, I'm getting off of Patreon. If you still want to support me, it's going to be a flat $10 a month fee. That'll give you access. You get access to my content either way. I really have no way to delay the videos from going out and keeping people from seeing them. So I figure it's basically, I'll just go to a flat donation. Obviously $10 helps the channel. Right now I'm unemployed, so the money goes into, keeping everybody fed and alive and well and all that fun stuff. But if you feel you want to contribute more, who am I to say no? Please do. It's always awesome and much appreciated. Those people who make, above the standard contribution, I'll give a shout out on the channel. As always, thank you very much for all your love and support. It means a lot, and it keeps me doing these videos, and I hope everybody enjoys them. So as always, like and subscribe. You can donate through ZellyPay. I'll put a link down in the doobly-doo. And let's get on to today's video du jour. I don't have anybody in the chats right now. There's nobody watching. I'm live for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's no big deal. I'm just recording these because, like I said, YouTube Live is easy. It does all the post-processing, and then I can go in afterwards and I can add video stamps and stuff like that. So YouTube has actually come quite a ways in its support, and I really like it. I like this option. I was using what is it? What's it called? VideoPad video editor, and it's a great piece of software. I bought it a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. Ran me about $60. No big deal. It works really well. It's pretty simple to use. I don't have time to futz with it. It's so much easier to just go through YouTube Live and throw the video out there. And since I'm not doing Patreon and putting the videos out before and making them secret or whatever, so other people can see them, before the general public can see them, it doesn't matter. Video Live, YouTube Live works really well. So today's video du jour is a blast from Gen Con 1997. I was there. I believe I was repping for Green Ronin, if I remember correctly. And 3.0 was in its heyday. D&D 3.0, 3.5 was about to come out. Might have been another year later, I think, or at the end of that year. Gen Con is usually in July, August, usually around. And one of the big things I do when I go to game conventions is I like to go and play games that I've never played before. And I saw this game, Waste World, by Manticore Productions. And I saw it listed in the Gen Con thing, and Bill King was the brainchild behind it. And if I remember correctly, Bill King is one of the guys that was in real big with Games Workshop back in the day, in the early days of Warhammer, when it was more of almost a role-playing game than it was a tabletop miniatures game. But anyway, I was at Gen Con. I had the money. I bought it. and it came out with a couple supplements, and we'll look at those later. But this is the core book. This was back in my heyday of I had a label maker, and so I went nuts. So you'll see a lot of my older books will have a label on there, and I had coil or I forgot what they call it, not coil. I had ring bind it at Kinko's. It was the thing to do. A good friend of mine, Amar, had worked at Kinko's, and so he would hook me up. You can see this is sold. The plastic is starting to break. It's 1997. It's brand new off the shelf. But the pages, the binding had broken. It was starting to fall apart because I was playing it. I actually ran this game, and it was a lot of fun. I got to play it at Gen Con with Bill King, and luckily enough, I had went and bought the book after I had played in the demo, and he signed it for me. So it says Bill King was here at Gen Con 97. All the best, mate, Bill. Super cool. Great art. So let's go through my critiquing of my books like I always do. It was a soft cover book. Never came out in a hardback that I'm aware of. Came out with a couple of supplements. So one of them was a free primer that they were giving away. And I do have it. I just can't find it. But it was a digest-sized little book that was an intro adventure with some starting characters pre-made, which are the same characters, I believe, that are in this book. And it was just a free primer they were giving away. I think it was called A Fistful of Credits, if I remember correctly. And it's what turned me onto the game. I saw that primer. It was laying around, Gen Con. If you've never been, they have tables interspersed throughout the convention with just freebie stuff all over them, posters, buttons, and all kinds of stuff. And so I saw this, it was a shrunk down cover of this, and it looked really cool. And so I picked it up and I started reading it, and it was a D20 based game like everything was back then. And it was awesome. It had cyberpunks in it. It had, their version of like a Matrix and just cool art. And, it was just neat. And I was hooked. And so I saw that they were running demos for it. And so I jumped into it. And so after I got out and went to the dealer's room, I found the booth where it was being sold, and I bought everything they had for it at the time, which was the player's book and the GM screen. And I'm not quite sure if the other books were out yet. I don't think any other books came out. I didn't find it on Drive-Thru-RPG, which is weird. You would think they would have it, but Drive-Thru-RPG does not have a PDF of this game. You can buy old copies on Amazon, going for $50. And to be honest, I don't even know what I paid for this. It has an ISBN on the back, but there's no price. I'm assuming I paid whatever retail was, which back then was probably, I would imagine, $39.95, $29.95 most. It's a decent sized book. We're looking at 288 pages, including the one-sided character sheet. And I'll show you the character sheet. That's a very basic character sheet. There was nothing special about it. But for whatever reason, this game just captured my imagination hard. And I thought it was cool. So soft bound book, glued. I do remember it starting to fall apart, but in all fairness, I gave it a lot of use. I ran this for several months, and I did a lot of conventions back in those days. I was going through a horrible divorce, and was in a really bad spot in my life, and so my escape was game conventions. And so I would go to all the game conventions I could go to, and there for a short stint they had done Gen Con SoCal, Southern California, right across from Disneyland. So I went, I think they had Gen Con SoCal for either 5 or 6 years, and I went to 4 of them, and it was a blast. It was always a good time. And unfortunately they weren't making enough money, and the venue was expensive and everything. And so they decided to squash it, which is a real bummer, because at the time I was living in Northern California. So it was easy for me to get there. I would just take a quick hour plane ride. I'd be in LA. And then I would go to the convention. I'd stay in this Best Western. It was a Best Western, literally across the street from Disneyland, and I would take a shuttle to the convention center, I think it was the Anaheim Convention Center. I don't remember. If anybody remembers, post it down in the doobly-doo. But yeah, so this is Waste World, perfect bound. I do, like I said, do remember it falling apart. So I had my buddy Amar, spiral bound it for me. He hooked me up. It's black and white art, which was typical back in the day, but it has a center page of about, I don't know, 10. Let's see, how many pages here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, double-sided, so 16 pages of color plates. And the art was glorious, late 90s, early, late 90s. The art it's so bad it's good. I mean, but it was just the style back then. Like so these are pre-gen character templates that you could play. They had a dual character process, and you could play these characters. This was an Icarus. They had the ability to fly with razor sharp wings. It's pretty cool. The cover art, color templates, cover art, a lot of cool templates. The art ranged from cartoony horrible to graphically gory. But the art was good. I mean, it was one of those things, black and white art. I don't know who the principal artist was. Let's see if we can find out. Color images. Philippe Droulet, Martina, I can't even say that. Andre Zaharnik, monochrome. So there's a bunch of people that did art. This book was out of the Czech Republic at the time. Bill King, I believe, is a Brit, so maybe that was just the publishing house he used, and that's what they did. So I'm trying to find a couple of yes. One of the races you could play was a sentient dinosaur with guns. I mean, come on, you can't beat that, man. You can't beat that with a stick. You had mutants. You had psychic powers. Here's a good full page black and white art. So very, very, the art was okay. I mean, and then you had pieces like that, still good. I mean, just kind of dark and gritty, and it reminds me a lot of the cyberpunk, the Transformers movie, that art style from the Transformers movie. That's very evocative of like when you saw Cybertron or Galvatron morphing into whatever is, I guess, Galvatron or whatever. But very bizarre art. Here's some mutants, so and the art to me is subpar. It's kind of meh. But then it reminds me very much of the early days of White Dwarf and 40K. And then you got cool pieces of art like this, very kind of Judge Dredd, just, robots and heavy armored dudes blasting away. So the art ranged in, quality. The book is held up well. This is original 1997 book. Like I said, I just had it bound. I'm trying to look and see some of the other full color pages. There's a quick start guide, which I believe is what they shrunk down and put into that little pamphlet. And all these characters were in the quick start guide that you could play. And basically, it was the whole point was just pick a template and play. You could change the name if you wanted to. Your attributes went from -5 to +5. It was a point by character creation system. It was a D20 system with the rule of 10, meaning you did your attribute and a skill, positive and negative modifiers, and you rolled. You were trying to get a target number of whatever the GM had given you. And if you got a 10 or below total on your die roll, you failed. If you got a 10, 11 or above on that D20, you succeeded. Damage was all over the gambit. You got bonuses. Like if you had bionic legs, you got a +1 to strength. And like this character has super leap, his strength is already a +1. The average baseline was 0. And again, you could go to +5 point buy system, exponentially goes up. You wanted a +5, it would go up. You could play mutants, you could play psychers. They had the different races, like Prometheans were they were based off of your how do I put this? Your not your race, but your identifier was the city that you were from. So if you were from Prometheus, you were a Promethean, and you usually had access to better tech. It was the rich city, governed by a political hierarchy that was clergy based. So there was the gods, so you had access to a lot of tech and a lot of firepower and everything. Panzers were basically AI controlled cyborgs, robots, and they were bad news. You didn't want to run into one of those. But you had Hydra, which were Hydra was basically mutants. They're pretty much most of them did not look human, but some could pass. Icarus was the super rich city, and everyone could fly. Well, the rich could fly, and they had powered armored suits. Then you had Janus, which was basically the dinosaurs. You had the Shogunate, which was basically just think, Japan, samurai. They had their big Shogunate armor, their samurai armor with vibro swords. And then you had Panzers, which were basically lack of a better word, were cybernetic monsters. And then you had Icarus again, was the psychics and the people who could fly. The Shogunate again was your samurai. Here's a good, and the color plates on the inside of the book, that's the Shogunate, and that's two of the characters that were basically pre-made characters that you could play. One was kind of like a ninja. He was a ninja, and then the other one was a samurai. And then you had Janus, which, like I said, was your mutants, and they were they were weird. So gorgeous kind of book in that retro 90s style. It wasn't well produced, but amazingly enough, I don't know if it was because of Bill King's writing or the translators or whatever. Not too many typos in here, not too many spelling errors. Everything looks pretty good. Book is held up, obviously the coil binding. It's held up really well. The pages haven't really turned too much. They've got a little yellow on them. The layout of the book was clear and concise. I mean, here's a standard page, and it was chock full of information, and pretty much everything you needed to play was in this. So we had the core book, which again, awesome in itself. Then they came out with the GM screen. The GM screen, I think, came out a little bit later, and it was during that era of the 90s and D20. All the GM screens were very flimsy. So it came with a book, campaign pack, PAK, and this had a lot of, it had some adventures in it. It also had some new rules, to up the game a little bit. And it had Toxic Spring was an area of Habs. Even gave you a very generic map of Toxic Springs. The art was, the same style, 90s weird graphical art. The good people of Toxic Springs. Obviously, this is an adventure with some new rules. I'm trying to see if I can see a date on this. Again, came out in 97, so it came out shortly after. I don't think it came out exactly when the core rule book came out, but shortly thereafter. The art is consistent. It's the same artist and art profile of the people that were in the book. Some of the art is repeated. These two pictures are in the core book. The Mohawk warrior with what looks like some sort of Gatling gun, and the motorcycle guy with a sidecar and a Gatling gun. That art is in the book. And of course, the new rules. There is some new art. There's a Rata in here. So good little campaign pack that basically give you everything that you needed to play. And then you had a GM screen with the cover image, and it's flimsy. There's nothing amazing about this. Critical hits on the left panel. Combat modifiers was in the center, which was your location, close combat, deviation, reaction roll, shooting, and special wounds. And then critical hits on the right side of the panel. So Critical hits on the left was your head and your arms. Critical hits on the right panel were your legs and your torso, and it just basically told you. Then you had melee weapons, armor, ranged weapons, and special weapons on the outside with the center art. So it's very flimsy, but it's laminated. It'll stand up on its own. You can't really see in the way I've got the camera, but it has stood the test of time, and I used it quite a lot. But like I said, that was the GM screen. Did not see it on Amazon. I only saw the core book. And then they did release 2 books. My favorite book, and these actually have helped stand up the test of time quite well, was The Shogunate. And this just went in. This was a splat book, which was all the rage back in the 3.0 days. This gave you new adversaries, new characters, new concepts, new advantages, just everything. Also, Bill King was a very prolific writer. He's got several novels to his credit. So there's a lot of fiction in here. Even in the core book, each chapter was prefaced by some fiction. Let's see if I have a date on this. 1997 for the Shogunate. So I believe I bought these at Gen Con. There's one of your samurai warriors with his force blade or light blade. I don't remember what they called it. But just super cool stuff. The art again is very much similar throughout the whole book. You had clans, and they believed in karma and everything, and you were, the politics. It went over again, all prefaced by a short piece of fiction. You could get these cats, basically. And you could put cybernetics on them, so you can have like a companion, and it was brutal. Just so over the top, it wasn't funny. Here's one of the mechs. It's a big giant mech. There's a little dude down there between his legs for scale. And these things, strode the wasteland, and they can decimate cities and stuff. But a lot of the tech that was required to run them was lost in the cataclysm. They never say what planet it is. But it was a utopian society. And then as people got greedy and the aliens and everybody came in, they quarantined the planet. And there was a toxic war with a nanite virus that they released. And the AIs went rogue. It was a giant shitstorm for hundreds of years. Nobody remembers all the nano nukes that went off and destroyed the planet. So there's these 6 cities, basically, or these arcologies that exist. Also, Shogunate was a good source of psychic powers, more on the martial end. Icarus had your mind-influencing powers, but you had ninjas. There's a piece of art. That's the NPC. His name was Noi, Noi, in the book. But you could play a ninja. And then a big section on characters. Some color pages. I don't even remember these, so that's just a blast for me. I know it's going to white out a little bit with the glare, but there's the color pages for your samurais. Mutations were frowned upon, so anybody from Hydra or Janus was frowned upon and usually killed on sight, because the Shogunate believed in genetic purity. So life paths, life in the Shogunate, equipment, all kinds of waste walkers, which were your giant robots. These things had, city leveling power. But back to the planet, it was quarantined, and the Galactic Empire put up basically giant space stations all around the planet. And basically anybody trying to come in or come out of the planet was obliterated. No questions asked. It was quarantined because of the nanovirus, because it could lay dormant, and then it would just poof, it would go and it would consume everything and destroy everything and just foobar everything. So A Land of Honor, A Time of Chaos, the Shogunate book. So super cool book. Like I said, perfect bound, glued, not stitched. It is held up pretty well to the test of time. So the Forge Shield, that's what they called the GM screen. And then there was the Hydra book, the Icarus book, the Janus book, and the Prometheus book, and of course the Shogunate book. I don't know if the Icarus, the Janus, or the Prometheus books came out. Something tells me they did. Prometheus was 1998 to be announced. Janus was 1998 to be announced. The Icarus book appears that it was already out. So I think Force Shield, Hydra, and Icarus books were out. It was just those last two were not. Janus and Prometheus. I don't know if they ever came out. If anybody knows, please post in the comments below and let me know. But yeah, so that was the Shogunate book. How many pages are we looking at here? 144 pages, including the backsplash page, which gives you a little bit of errata and what's coming out for support for Waste World. So again, over the top, 1997, just crazy gonzo, crazy weapons, ninjas in space or ninjas on a planet. And then there was the Hydra book. Same thing, I think, running at about 150 pages, 167 pages. And support for, if I can get to the last page. Same things, a little bit of errata. This one's got the Shogunate, the Force Field, a fistful of credits. That was that little pamphlet that was freebie in the Icarus book. And I have that fistful of credits somewhere. It's in one of my boxes still because I don't have room for it up on the shelf. But I do have that book. So, and this is the Hydra book. Same thing. They recycled a little bit of art, but it was all about crazy mutations, and they embrace the mutations. There's a bestiary, there's all kinds of, some of the art was recycled, but you could, the Hydra were kind of underwater, living in the pressure of the deep ocean, and just, you had all like toxic sludge. Like here's a great example of some weird, what the hell is that? Who knows? But the Hydra were the guys that lived underwater. They could survive on land as well, but they were all genetically, modified to live under the pressures of the water in this water-based society. And most of the water on the planet is a toxic sludge. But supposedly the Hydrans, they found access to water somehow, or they make it or whatever. I don't know, but they're genetically modified. A lot of bioorganic stuff, just crazy, mutated, biokinetic. It is a great piece of art. I think it even goes with that new psionic powers. So lots of cool stuff, just crazy out there, over the top, genetic, like what the hell is that? And whatever it is, I don't want to run into it anytime soon. But just, all kinds of new powers, new equipment, hydran weapons, bone lance, enzyme grenades. Yeah, that doesn't sound good. I don't care who you are. Slap patches, symbiotic implants, just crazy. I mean, some mantis warrior chick. I mean, who knows, man? Just over the top. Crazy, but kind of cool art. I mean, kind of retro style, weird insect. All their ships were bioorganic drones and watercraft. And there's a section for the narrator, how to run a Hydran campaign, adventure seeds. So just really well done books for 1997, using a D20 modified system, the rule of 10. Some percentage-based rolls, but this is a blast from the past, man. I got it signed by Bill King, which is really cool, and just overall neat game, man. So not going to be too long. Not going to focus on this too much. Not playing it anymore, obviously, but I'm happy it's in my collection. Got it signed by the author. Cool game, very over the top. Have you seen it? Have you heard of it? Have you played it? I mean, I want to hear your experiences. Let me know what you think. I think it was a fun game. I played a lot of it back in the day, and I thought it was just over the top, silly, crazy fun. But in any game, I really feel there's not too many bad RPGs. There's just bad GMs. There are a few bad RPGs that just don't work, and I've reviewed at least 2 of them on my channel. I don't know about any others, but I mean, I'm sure there's more. I went through that phase of I bought just about everything. I regret losing my midnight campaign from Fantasy Flight back in the D20. I bought the book. I turned around and took it to Bookman's, which in Arizona was a local place you could sell used RPGs and used books and used anything, CDs, DVDs, you name it, VHS tapes, the whole gambit. But anyway, I got rid of my Midnight collection, and to this day, I kick myself because I haven't been able to find another one. I believe I have them in PDF, but it's just not the same. I want the books. But anyway, back to the topic on hand. Midnight, role-playing in a savage future. Did you guys hear of it? Have you played it? Have you seen it? Do you know about it? Let me know your thoughts below in the notes below. As always, like and subscribe. And remember, Mr. Mean always says, be nice.